this message, we're going to discuss the topic eternal security. And there are a lot of people that believe this doctrine of a devil. This is a doctrine that was thought up in hell, and it makes me wonder how that people like John MacArthur and other ministers that can have such a sound teaching in most of their teaching, and yet be so far out in left field when it comes to this teaching, eternal security. There are so many scriptures in the Bible to support the fact that once you get saved, that you can easily, if you're not careful, if you're not living right, if you're not staying repentive, that you could fall away. And that you, now I said easily, but really actually it's not easy. If you're gonna lose your salvation, you got to really work hard at it. But to say that you can't lose your salvation, I mean, there's people today, Baptist ministers, that are teaching their people that no matter what you do, you still got to go to heaven. And what they do is they teach people that you'll lose your reward, but you're still going to be saved. Or they use the scripture where the Bible talks about being turned over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that the soul might be saved. These are all scriptures that strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. I'm going to share with you one scripture that if you ever are dealing with a person that believes this, you can give this scripture to them. More than likely they won't receive it. But the scripture says that they're willingly ignorant. So if they don't receive the truth, they don't want to hear the truth, and they're willingly ignorant. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 27, Paul the Apostle is saying these words. He says, But I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. Now, listen to the original Greek for this word castaway. It means to be unapproved. It means to be rejected, worthless, reprobate. Now, when you hear the word rejected, does that sound like it's just the opposite of accepted? And Paul is saying, after I've preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. Paul is helping us understand how serious it is to keep under your body and to bring it into subjection. When Peter asked Jesus, are there few that be saved? Jesus said, strive to enter the straight gate. Few there would be that would find the narrow gate that leads to life. He didn't say it was going to be easy. He said, strive. There are so many scriptures in the Bible that support or that are totally, completely contrary and against this teaching of once saved, always saved, eternal security. But you know what's amazing is there's not one scripture in the Bible, not one, that supports eternal security. Only if they take it out of context. Not one scripture. Not one. It's completely against God's character. It's completely against God's nature. There are people today, ministers teaching people, that even if you continue to sin, even if you murder somebody, you still got to go to heaven. Can you see God hauling a bunch of rebellious, stubborn people that don't want to go to heaven into his kingdom? Now, it does say the Spirit draws, and it does mean to drag. But you're talking about someone that doesn't want to go. Now, we read in the Old Testament scriptures, the Spirit of the Lord would not always strive with man because he's also flesh. That's where we are right now. The Spirit of God is drawing, dragging, because our flesh doesn't want to go. But those that deliberately do not want to go to heaven, eventually it's going to come to the place where they're going to be left out. God is dealing. God is drawing. God is dragging. God is doing everything on his part he could possibly do to get you into his kingdom. But if you're just bent on not wanting to go there, you don't want to go to heaven. Now, what happens when people want the world and they want God too? I shared that message with you the other day about how that Jesus has got one half and the devil's got the other half, and you're being torn in the middle. It's going to tear you apart. It's going to destroy you. Paul says, I keep under my body and bring it into subjection. That doesn't sound like a walk in the park to me. That doesn't sound like you're just going to float into heaven. Listen to what it says here. I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway, rejected, unworthy, worthless. Paul must have understood something about God to make that statement, right? Just before that, he's talking about striving. Listen to what he's, and it's amazing because this is, I didn't even know this, but this is in the same context of where Paul is talking about running a race. Paul says, and every man that striveth for the mastery, to struggle for a prize, is temperate. He exercises restraint in all things. Now they do it to attain a corruptible crown. They're doing that for a corruptible crown. He says, but we an incorruptible crown. Incorruptible crown. They do it for a corruptible crown. They'll do without food so they can stay at a certain weight. They will give up time with friends, time with doing pleasurable things so that they can train, so they can be winners. We don't really understand, folks, all the sacrifice that goes into some of these athletes to make them winners. Now, we know it just recently came out that one of these athletes was using steroids. And more of this will probably come out in the future. But for those that don't use steroids and they pay the price and they do the training and they become winners. And Paul says they're doing it for a corruptible crown. He says, I'm doing it for an incorruptible crown. We're doing this for an incorruptible crown. Listen to what he goes on to say. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air, not standing in place. I'm not practicing. But I keep under my body and bring it into subjection. Bring it into subjection. Paul is telling us if you're going to be a winner, you got to be disciplined. You got to be disciplined. If you're going to be a winner, you got to exercise restraint. You've got to exercise discipline. You've got to be willing to sacrifice. You've got to be willing to pay the price. If you're going to be a winner, it's going to cost you something. This idea today that people can just go to heaven any way they are and just continue in their sins and they still go into heaven. That's not what Paul was teaching. It's not what Paul was teaching. So I leave you with that thought. If you're going to win, you're going to pay a price to win. You're going to do some striving. Just like Jesus said to Peter, strive to enter the straight gate. Few there be that find it. Way that leads to life. And because we're running out of time on our broadcast, down to about 20 hours, I guess, left of our space, we'll probably do a whole lot more of these shorter messages. 10-minute messages, 15-minute messages. But I trust the Lord will give us something in that 10, 15 minutes that'll be a blessing to you.